At the same time, the Tanjiao camp began to approach the area quickly. Hong Yao started to look down, and upon seeing so many people she began to smile, since this situation was similar to when Jayanat had gone to the wedding. This was perfect for her, as last time she hadn't vented enough. Gu Kaishan remained calm and asked her what she was doing. With so many people watching, at least they should pretend that there was first courtesy, and then take action. Otherwise, people would think that their whole family were brutes. Gu Kaishan's body began to emit an orange energy. Hong Yao noticed that his killing intent was even stronger, thinking that where there was a master there must be a disciple. Behind them was Zhang. She turned her head back and with a cheerful smile, asked what his opinion on this was, but he didn't even respond as he was once again lost in his thoughts. He was in the insect nest and around him were thousands of insects. A system window appeared informing that the reproduction of the 9 miasma wings had finished. The mother insect was level 27 and she had an offspring of 5.1 million. Seeing that the reproduction of the 3rd generation had been a success before the war, he felt happy. And although it wasn't enough to defeat the nation, it was more than enough. Hong Yao touched his shoulder and asked him not to be afraid, since although he was not very strong, he had the master in her, making him come out of his trance. With a surprised look, he began to wonder what was happening. He started pointing at the mountain with his finger and explained that he was not afraid. He had just seen Uncle Jie Gang and the others on the mountain. First, he wanted to go see them and give them a gift. Gu Kaishan gave him permission, since they were going to pass by there later anyway. Upon hearing this, he began to smile, and while his body was surrounded by poisonous mist, he jumped and started descending. Wuxiang began to observe Zhang and with a surprised look asked that he not die, since he had not yet played enough with him. Tang Ying realized that he had a calamity, and it was no longer surprising to him that he had been able to kill Xiao Baihan in an instant. Bai Feng felt somewhat worried about him, as she did not want the second person in all of the history of the great Xia who had completed the ladder of emptiness to die. Jiang began to distance himself from them. Mu Henkyu started looking at him. Her master did not know if her grandfather was going to come help or not. Luo Sandao, who was next to her, told her that worrying now was useless. This level of war was something they could not help with. Causing no problems was more than enough. Some time later, Jiang landed in the area where Jie Gang and the others were, and seeing that they had come, he couldn't help but feel happy. He approached Uncle Jie Gang, took out a green crystal from his inventory, extended his hand towards him and reminded him that at first he had said he was going to gift him a set of epic equipment, but he hadn't been able to obtain it, but now believed that this was equivalent to it. Jie Gang extended his hand towards the crystal, began to observe it, and couldn't help but be shocked as it was an origin crystal. This was equivalent to having the key to enter the 7th realm. Zhang took out several more items. Among them there was equipment and weapons. To Aunt Tang he gave a silk scarf, to Duang a bow, to Chu Bailing a dagger, and to Hanky platinum-level equipment. At the same time, old Zhao and the Heavenly Punishment Squad arrived at a cliff. He was furious and his eyes were filled with rage. Upon seeing that Zheng Chen had descended, he ordered them to prepare. At that moment, Duan Feng appeared, and using his hand began to signal him to stop. He asked him to wait a moment, since more than 100 days had passed since the Tanjiao camp had disappeared. It was being taken care of by Gu Kaishan, so they could not be careless. The old Zhao turned his head back, started to stare at him, and began to think. Then he started to look down, and with a serious look decided to kill Gu Kaishan along with Zhang, if he did not know how to appreciate what he had. After several minutes, the camp arrived near the area. Duan Feng began to observe it, and asked Gu Kaishan to surrender and hand over Zhang Chen. He and Zhao Yuanchen were great fighters from Jiangnan. Once the battle began, the city was going to suffer. According to him, it was better to sacrifice Zhang. Du Kaishan, who was standing on top of the camp, refused to give up, as in this life he had nothing to be ashamed of in Jiangnan, nor in the great Xia. He had brought back 150 heroes from the district, and not only this, but he had also taken them on a visit to the Palace of Emptiness. The parents of the participants remembered that the Palace of Emptiness was a place of miracles, where many great ones sought power without success. They did not expect that the King of Celestial Sword would have a way to enter. Now their children were going to succeed. They could not just stand by doing nothing. And although they could not save Jiang Chen, they were not going to join the Zhao family. Duan turned around, extended his hand to one side, and with a smile explained that with these 150 heroes, the reputation of Jiang Nan was going to rise like the tide. At that moment, the old Zhao Yuanchen appeared, and while his eyes were shining, he used his power, making 2 giant blocks of water appear. He was so powerful that the water from the rivers and the sea began to concentrate in the sky, creating a huge block of water. As his body was surrounded by water, he revealed that Jiang Chen could control a calamity, according to the law of Great Xia. He should be executed, and as for Gu Kaishan, he was acting against the rules, protecting those who could control the forbidden. He had sealed off Qianjia's camp and all the examiners. According to him, Gu Kaishan had put the camp in danger. Everyone started to look up and saw that the water was slowly approaching the camp. Zhao Yuanchen could control the sea. Both he and Gu Kaishan were strong, so the others decided to be neutral and not join any side. With a calm look, Gu Kaishan asked Zhang to return and ordered Hang Yao to take care of the flight of the Tanjiao camp. Upon hearing this order, she began to use her powers and started controlling the camp. Zhang created a barrier around Zhegang and the others so they would not intervene in the battle. He jumped up and using the poisonous mist began to fly. He apologized to them and also asked them to stay in the barrier watching without intervening. Upon seeing the barrier, Zhegang was somewhat confused as he did not know when he had invoked the spell. He turned his head back and explained that he could not handle the spell. It would only dissipate once the battle ended. Gu Kaishan began to control his sword, making its blade emit a powerful golden energy. Old Yuanchen started flying, extending his sword sideways, causing a large tornado made of water to appear behind him. He couldn't believe that Gu Kaishan really wanted to draw his sword against him. He leaned the sword on his shoulder. Yuanchen had a power superior to the 8th level and also possessed more than 10 forbidden water spells. And Gu Kaishan only knew how to use a sword. He did not know what he was afraid of. Both prepared to fight, but at that moment, someone invoked an ice barrier which appeared between the two, preventing them from starting to fight. The person who had created the barrier was General Dawn. While he was controlling the barrier using his fingers, with a sincere look he asked both of them to calm down, since if they were really going to fight, not only would the camp suffer but even the Jiangnan base next door would also suffer the consequences. For everyone's sake, he asked them not to fight. At that moment, Kai Obahan appeared and told them that for the good of the people it was better for him and Jiang Chen to have a duel to the death. Upon hearing his voice, Duan turned around and seeing that he had appeared, he couldn't help but be somewhat surprised. Now he had a new arm. Using the sword, he began to fly. He started to observe his arm and couldn't help but start smiling. Jiang had cut off his arm that day, and today he was determined to kill him with his own hands. Kai Obahan began to advance towards them. Duan Feng extended his hand towards him, asking him to stop. According to him, Kai Obahan's idea was better since the grievances of the young should be resolved by the young and the old generation should not intervene. Jiang also started to fly. He began to stare at Kai Obahan. He knew that he was not good enough to have a 1v1 death match, so he asked what his conditions were. He started to smile and thought that he was a very smart boy. His 2 conditions were that he could not use Little Nine nor her poison. Kai Obahan began to fly and could not help but laugh out loud, as it was no surprise that he was his grandson. They were doing this for the peace of Jiangnan and for the well-being of the people. Gu Kaixin unsheathed the sword and with an aggressive look, he began to point the blade at them and told them to stop saying nonsense. Just because they were on a high moral ground they could not do what they wanted. He prepared to fight and mocked Yuanxian, saying that if he had guts then he should stop harassing the children and come fight him. But Jiang grabbed him and stopped him, saying that they could not let others think that they were brutes. He started pointing at himself with his finger, and with a confident look revealed that he did not need Calamity to win, since he had another way of dealing with him. Upon hearing this, he was somewhat confused and asked what other way he had to deal with him. Zhang reminded him that he had said he would teach him a secret technique. Gu Keixin was shocked to see that he wanted to learn the technique now. Hong Yao, who was flying, panicked and thought he was joking since she had taken more than 10 years to learn the secret technique and Jiagang still had not been able to master the technique until now. Zhao Bian started laughing and mocked Zhang, asking if he wanted him to wait 10 years so that he could learn the technique. He began to smile and said it wasn't necessary. Just 5 minutes were more than enough. Du Keixin got angry and started shouting, explaining that the sword style was not something that could be learned so quickly. Zhao Bian began to laugh even more, while on the other side, Yuangxian remained silent. Zhang took Gu Keixin's sword, clenched his other fist, and with a confident smile asked him to teach him the technique. He started looking at the sword and fell silent. At that moment, the sword began to resonate, and upon realizing this, he was shocked. He started to look at Zhang with a confused look, and did not take long to realize that he had been the one who had caused the resonance of the heart of the sword in the space of the void. This is the end of the video. If you guys want to see the next part,